Are you ready to branch out, to take a leap of faith, to love yourself and others fully? Then let go of whatever no longer serves you to take action now on Get Rooted Radio with Erica Gifford Mills, living it up, loving it up, and letting it go. Erica will energize and excite you to power up your passionate dream that sets your soul on fire. With Erica's E3 approach, equipping, empowering, and enlightening yourself so you can be yourself for yourself. Get ready and get rooted to live a life without regrets, without what ifs, without should haves, and especially without empty feelings from a life unexplored. This hit show helps you build powerful and intentional roots to live it up, love it up, and let it go. Get fearlessly ready and powerfully rooted in your yes with your host, Erica Gifford Mills, and be fearless about your more and stand in your yes. Now on Get Rooted Radio.
Welcome, everyone. I am Erica Gifford Mills, and you are listening to Get Rooted Radio, living it up, loving it up, letting it go, right here on Transformation Talk Radio. Big shout out to my new producer, Malia. Hey, Malia, tell listeners a little bit about yourself.
Oh, shoot. I'm so sorry. I was muted. I wasn't ready for that. Hi. Yeah. What was your question? I'm so sorry.
It's okay. This is your first show. It's so great to have you part of the show, and just want to tell listeners a little bit about you.
Oh, yeah. So I'm new to Transformation Talk Radio. I've been working here as a producer for 3 months now and really loving the job.
Well, I'm glad to have you part of Get Rooted Radio. And with that, I want to jump right into today's show. It's Even a Broken Heart Still Beats. And many people go through traumatic events, devastating losses, and rough patches. It's a part of life, right? It really allows us to enjoy those great moments in our life even more. We appreciate things when we understand that there might be something tragic that happens. And it's like the saying goes, be kind. You don't know what someone else is going through. And I think that's really important because today's episode is for anyone who is recovering, whether it's from an emotional trauma, addictions, whether that's drugs or alcohol or shopping or binge eating or other disorders, or like the compulsions, right? Or we know somebody who has gone through these hard times. We are all dealing not with the diseases, but with the consequences of the choices that those decisions have made. And you'll hear from our guest today that there's no secret formula. There's no cut and dry. There's no one size fits all. And that's what we need to talk about today. And that is what Sabrina and I are going to be discussing. But I want to tell you a little bit about her first, because she is an amazing woman. Sabrina loves to say that she writes because things need to be written, but she's an author because her work is published. She's a president of Sabrina Graves Creates, a showcase for her writing and original artwork. She's also established Just Imagine Possibilities, a coaching platform dedicated to empowering others to open their minds and hearts to see limitless possibilities hidden in their lives. And we all have them. Drawing inspiration from our personal journey of recovery from a painful past, today Sabrina motivates others to see that healing is possible and laughter is the best medicine. She's the author of Help Me, I'm Broken and The Price of the Passion. Sabrina knows that everything she went through was for a purpose. An unintentional lifetime New York City public servant, thank you for being a public servant, Sabrina values every opportunity to welcome people into her space to learn from her struggles, her triumphs, and her failures, and understand that there is life after the pain, opportunity after each defeat, and abundance after the darkness. And she really invites you to look at her life and just imagine the possibilities. So welcome, Sabrina. Thank you so much for being on the show today.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it today. It's nice to be with you. And so, it's like, this has been a difficult time with the last 2 years. It's been a difficult time for everybody, I think. And I think there are a lot of people who are trying to just find that peace within themselves.
Yes. It's important. And I know that's what our first segment is going to be about, is living your recovery. So when we say living your recovery, what does it mean to live your recovery? Tell us about your journey.
Well, for me, what this was about was when I got divorced after about, I think it was 17 years of marriage. And I thought at one point I had the perfect life, and I realized that I didn't. But after, I became a very bitter, angry person. And I hated everything that had to do with marriage. I hated everything that had to do with love. And, it was sort of like, yeah, marriage is an institution, but who wants to be institutionalized their whole life? So it was that sort of thing. When I got beyond that point and I started to see possibilities in the future, I thought that life was good and everything was perfect. And then life happens. And I realized that the depression would come back. And those moments of despair and, where you just don't feel good about yourself or life, or you don't see any hope, those times would still happen. I didn't understand it. I didn't understand it because I thought once I was beyond the pain of what happened with the divorce and the part of my life that was, I would be okay. And I wasn't expecting the pain from depression to come back because I didn't feel I had anything to be depressed about, but the pain would come back. The insecurities would come back. Those times where you feel like nothing works for you, like everything in your life is going wrong, would come back, and they would come back with such a vengeance that I didn't understand how to deal with them. And I realized that what I had tried to do was get beyond my recovery. I had gotten over the ex-husband. I had gotten over the pain of divorce, but now I was trying to get beyond my actual recovery, which is not always possible. And I realized what I needed to do was live my recovery, which means when those times happen, and they happen to all of us, I don't know anyone who is always up, always, the best part of life, and every day is just sunshine and, rainbows and wonderful. Everybody goes through those moments of being insecure, those moments of, is this all there is in my life? Is this all I have to look forward to? And I realized that what I needed to do, and a lot of people that I talk to, what we need to do is just live our recovery. Let those moments happen. They're going to happen to everybody, no matter who we are or what we're going through. Let them happen, but realize why they're happening. There's something that triggers those things in us. And when we recognize those triggers, we can deal with them.
Yes.
And that's what living your recovery is about.
And I think that's important, is that, social media is great to keep in touch with people, but you only see the greatest hits, right? You don't see anybody's B-side, right? You don't see the one-hit wonders or anything else. You see all the greatness, right? You see all the wonderful, and it doesn't matter how well somebody carries the load, they all have a load to carry. And we go through those times. And I think it is important how you said, what triggers it, right? And then what inspires you when you're in it to go through it. It's, if you're going through HE double hockey sticks, keep going, right?
Exactly.
You got to keep going. You got to keep going. So for you, what inspires you in the midst of your recovery? What inspires you to just keep going?
Well, I had to move this year. And I think that the reason I named my company Just Imagine Possibilities is because what inspires me the most are the possibilities. I got some extra money and I decided I was going to buy an apartment in New York. Buying an apartment is like buying a house anywhere else in the country because we just don't have property here. So you buy an apartment. And I went and saw an apartment on a Thursday. I made an offer on a Friday. It was accepted on a Saturday. And I think about 2 weeks later, I was actually under contract. And I thought, this is perfect. This is exactly the way it's supposed to happen for me. Everything was moving very fast. And I was great with that. So I thought this was wonderful, but 3 months later, I hadn't moved beyond that point. And now I'm getting very, the depression started coming because those voices started speaking in my head about why isn't this working? I've done everything I was supposed to do. I worked really hard to put my credit score up. I had done all of those positive things so that this one dream that I would have would happen for me and I'd buy an apartment. And it was the perfect apartment. It was, 2 bedrooms with a dining room, a great kitchen, a wonderful view. I was ecstatic. And it didn't happen. And it got to the point where it is the end of June or going toward the end of June. The building that I was living in, I have already given up my lease to say, okay, I'm good. I've bought somewhere. I don't need this apartment. I'm ready to move. I've taken all of my stuff and put it in storage because the building I was living in, they were redoing the elevator. So the elevator, we only had one. The elevator's out of service. I live on the top floor. No one's going to move you from the top floor. So I put everything in storage and I'm ready to move into my apartment, and it never happened. And I had this whole, like, what am I gonna do? I have no place to stay now because I've given up my apartment. I can't buy the apartment that I was going for because I had a mortgage broker who started these really hard tactics to get me to give more money because I didn't have 20% to put down, but I put down 10%. And I told him in the beginning, and when we got to the end of this, where I'm getting desperate, like I have to move, his attitude was, well, I need another 5%. So do you need to go find another 5%? And my attitude was, what bank am I robbing to get another $15,000? And so I had gotten to the point where I could not understand why it was happening. What was going on with me? Why? Like, I should have gotten this apartment. And so it all fell through. And my sister says to me, why don't you just ask the community where I live presently if they have another apartment and you could just rent it, and then next year you go and buy another apartment or something. So even though in March I made an offer on an apartment, I was under contract in April, and nothing happened from that point. When I asked if there was an apartment available in the community I was living in, I went from, in less than 10 days, I had applied for it and I had already moved in. So I still was upset because it didn't work for me the way I thought it would. But I realized I needed to learn something. When I got ready to move, and this whole thing brought about this because I was ready to move, I had over 53 boxes that I had to move. Now you have to understand, most people would not think that's a lot. But for one person living in a 1-bedroom apartment, 53 boxes is a lot. And when I moved, I had to realize that I was becoming a hoarder. I had taken all of those moments of, insecurity and feeling bad about myself, and I would shop. But I would take the things that I would shop for, and I would just put them in closets. I would put them away. But I never actually did anything with it. I'd have all this new stuff all the time. So I would go shopping. And I was one of those people who I would hoard stuff and hide it. So it didn't look like I had a lot of stuff. But when you actually had to pack it up, I had a lot of stuff. What inspired me the most about the situation was I finally got to recognize a trigger. Because I would always need something just in case, or I would hold on to something just in case, because I might need it one day. And to be able to recognize the trigger of what made me go shopping or what made me hold on to something was like, it was so great to inspire me to say, no, you can't do that. So when I got divorced, I was so caught up in losing everything in my head that I had to hold on to everything now. And that's what I did. I held on to everything. So I had so much stuff.
And I think that's, it's how things start, right? We hold on so tight to what was, regardless of what people are going through, right? We long, or we look at those glory days, or we look at because it was better then, and not looking forward. And sometimes letting go is just what is needed.
But it's also very hard.
Oh,
to let
absolutely.
Go of everything. When I moved into my new apartment, my sisters came over to help me unpack. And they had warned me, you need to be ready for us to come over because we're going to throw things out. And I thought I was prepared for this until I realized that I've always, my entire life, loved high heel shoes. I love them. 6 inches, 5 inches high are like, that's my sweet spot. I love them. But I am 55 years old and there is no reason for me to have the collection of high heel shoes that I had. Now, I thought it was manageable until my sisters came over and we started to unpack my stuff, because I realized I had over 20 pairs of 5 and 6 inch shoes, which there is no reason. And I had every color. I had 4 and 5 pairs of black ones and red ones and blue. And I had so many shoes that I will never wear. And some of them, even though I've had them for 5, 6, 7 years, were still brand new. They were never out of the box. So other than trying them on the first time, I never actually wore them. But I held on to them because I might need this, green pair of shoes one day. And I held on to it. And it gave me comfort because I would always have it. So when we looked in my pantry, I mean, just in the medicine closet, I had every medicine I think it was ever prescribed for me. And what my sisters were done with was I had medicine that had expired 5 years before, we actually got into the closet, because I had just been holding on to it. I never took it, but I'm holding on to it. And what triggered me after the divorce was every time I would think that I wasn't worthy, or I felt bad, or I got in that situation where I was depressed, I would go shopping and I would own something to hold on to.
Retail therapy. Yeah.
Yes. But I realized I had so much stuff that I did not have room for me in my own apartment. That's how bad it got. I mean, I'm an artist and I paint. And one of the things that I do is I'll paint a picture, love it the moment it's done, and then put it to the side. When I moved, I realized that I had 20 boxes of paintings that I was going to sell. I was going to put, on a commerce page. I was going to do those things. But if I held on to them, they would bring me comfort. Living your recovery is understanding that even those things you can let go of.
Yes.
So the 20 pairs of shoes, I was able to let go of. The art pieces, I was able to, establish a page where I could sell them and let someone else take them. But it's recognizing why I held on to things that allowed me to get rid of them.
Yeah. And I think that's important for folks to realize, right? And we've been talking about living your recovery, but let's move forward to life beyond the pain. So how does one explain their pain? Like, so you have this painful moment, this event, or this series of events, this time in your life. How do you explain your pain?
I think that what we do, especially as women, is we tend to think that no one has ever gone through what we're going through. And we make it so personal that we hold on to it. Like we can't share it because no one will ever understand what it is to lose the love of your life, what it is when a parent dies or a child dies. And I think that we get caught up in it being so personal to us that we can't get beyond it because it becomes something we hold on to, that in a way it keeps us company. But when we understand that somebody else has gone through the same situation, they have dealt with the same pain, they know what it's like to go through a divorce, they know what it's like to lose that job that you wanted, they know what it's like to have to deal with all of this pressure. When we understand that we are not exclusive to our pain, then it makes us able to share it because somebody else understands it. And we're not alone. When we feel alone in our pain, we can't share it out because no one would understand. But when we realize that we're all in this together, and women have been through so much pain, so much, things that we have to overcome, that there's always a woman somewhere who will understand exactly what we're going through if we allow ourselves to speak out to that.
Right.
Because it becomes shared. And once it becomes shared, we are able to deal with it better.
Yeah. And even if people don't, I mean, I saw this the other day. It was, if you don't understand why somebody's not over grieving, be thankful that you've never been in that position. And, because grieving is, even though grieving may be a personal process, somebody has gone through a similar situation in many times almost the exact situation. And when you can have that, it's like being part of a group you never really wanted to be a part of, right? Whether that's a loss of a child, the loss of a spouse, the loss of a sibling, whatever that might be, you do become parts of these clubs that they can help if you allow that, right? If you allow yourself to open up, to be vulnerable, and to listen to what other people have gone through, you have that opportunity then to help express yourself and explain your pain.
It is like getting beyond your pain is just understanding that it is a page in the book of your life. All of us have this huge tome that we live. And whatever we're going through, whatever pain, it's a few paragraphs on the pages of our lives. It is not the end of our book. It is not the end of our story. It's just a paragraph. Sometimes when we look back on our lives, we realize that the times that we thought were the most painful or the most traumatic were really only sentences, because there's so much other stuff that happened. But we actually have to take the time to look at it. And the hardest time to do that is in the midst of it.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, and it's funny. It's like doing a task. I mean, I don't mean to trivialize it by any means, but that one thing that you've been putting off because I don't know how to do it, or I'm not good at it, and I'm procrastinating, I'm putting off, and then I finally do it. And I'm like, oh, well, that wasn't that bad.
Exactly.
You get through it, not to trivialize it by any means, but it's, you then look back and say, I thought that was the end of my life. I thought that it was the end of my journey. This is how it's like I joke on getting a leg cramp in the middle of the night and being like, this is how I die. I know it. This is going to, and then it's over, right? It's being able to go through it, be present in the moment, feel the feels, and then just don't unpack it, right? Don't unpack and live there. And that's hard. It's like letting go, right? Like you were talking about earlier. That's hard.
Well, one of the things that I found out, I have these pity parties sometimes, or I used to, and I would just feel sorry for myself. And this is when you tear up and cry, and you sit in front of like the old movies and you eat a gallon of ice cream and things like that. And I realized that I had less and less time for that in my life, because between work and grandchildren and children and writing and art, I didn't have time for it. So what I said is I would schedule the time to have a pity party, because I can't not do it. I think we all have to have those times where we just feel sorry for ourselves. So I said I would schedule the time. And I realized that for the way my life is set up, the best time to do this is somewhere around 2:30, 3 o'clock on a Sunday morning. Because I can have the entire, nothing, no one's gonna call me, no one's gonna bother me, no one's gonna ask me to do something. I can do all of those things between that time and it'll fit and no one will interrupt that. But I realized that I would rather sleep during that time. So if I slept through it, I would do it again the next week, but I would always schedule the time. But what I found out is life doesn't allow me to always have the time, but I would always schedule it.
Yeah.
So
I like that. So one of the things that you mentioned is, pain, right? Pain's going to be there,
yes,
but suffering's optional.
yes, it is.
And I think that's very important to listeners to hear. So it's pain may be inevitable, but suffering is optional. And
Yes.
It's true, right? I mean, we're going to go through pain. I mean, we're going to have our ups and downs, but do we have to dwell in it, sit in it, and marinate in it, right? That suffering, we can learn from it. It's like failing. Failure's good. It teaches you something, right? You can teach yourself, you can learn something from it and grow from it.
Yeah, I think back to when I started the third book, which is Living Recovery, Even a Broken Heart Still Beats. When I started that book, what started was I started rehashing what happened when I got divorced. And I started telling the whole story. And I wrote it and I wrote it. And I would have to read it to edit it. And I got tired of it because I was rehashing the same part. And I think that when you've told your own story to yourself so much that you don't want to hear it, I think that every woman who's gone through something traumatic, something painful, if she were to write it down, even with all the tears, even with all of the horrible things, if you were to write it down and have to go back and look at it, I think that we would all take a moment and go, like, no, I can't do this. I gotta rewrite this. I don't like her. Like, we become our own heroine. And it's like, oh, I don't like that character. We have to change that. And we stop rehashing it in our head. It's when we continue to live the pain. It's when we continue to go over it again and again and again, what he did to me. It's like the Bible is one of my favorite books because I think there's so much in it that we can apply to our lives today. And I think about, there was a time when Jesus went on his travels and he came to a pool where the story was that if you stepped in the pool after the angels would come once a year and trouble the water, if you got in the water immediately after that, you would be healed. And so there was a guy who laid there and he had been there for 38 years. And so Jesus came to him and said, would you like to be healed? And what he said was, I want you to tell those people to stop getting in ahead of me, because every time I try to get in the water, someone gets in before I do. And when I applied it to my life, I realized he didn't answer Jesus' question. What Jesus said is, would you like to be healed? What he said is, I want you to stop everybody else from getting something before I get it.
Yeah.
Like, you don't, every time I try to do it, somebody else does something ahead of me. Somebody does it better. Somebody does it different. But that's not what he asked you. And if we actually look at our lives and say, if we had the chance if someone came and asked us, would we like the best part of our life over? Would we like to redo something? What would our answer be? Would it be, yes, I'd like that? Or would it be, I want you to tell them to stop bothering me at work because, there's always someone who's bothering me, or it's, what would we say if we were given that opportunity?
I think that's a great place to take a break. So we're going to take a quick break. And when we return, we're going to discuss the truths about recovery. But before we go, Sabrina, tell listeners how they can learn more about you.
Well, I am on all things social media as Sabrina Graves, and they can come out and send me an email because I do respond to all emails at, what is my email? It's bree2348@gmail.com, or in any of my books, because my bios are part of my books, to know about who I am and what I'm doing. So all things social media, Sabrina Graves.
Wonderful. I am Erica Gifford Mills, and you are listening to Get Rooted Radio, living it up, loving it up, letting it go. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. We're back on Get Rooted Radio with Erica Gifford Mills, living it up, loving it up, letting it go. Don't forget to visit getrootedradio.com to listen to a replay of this episode, sign up for helpful tips, and learn about upcoming events. That's getrootedradio.com. So the last couple segments, we were talking about life beyond the pain. But now let's get down and dirty with the truth about recovery. So welcome back, Sabrina. Thank you so much for being on today.
Oh, again, thank you so much for having me. This is really fun for me. So you talk. Yeah.
No, go ahead. As I say, let's talk about it. What is the truth?
We were talking about the truth about recovery. And the truth about recovery is it is completely individual for everyone who's gone through it. And there is no set pattern. There is no time limit. There is no, it doesn't matter if somebody else doesn't understand how you recover. It's like the grieving process. It is personal to everybody, to whatever you're going through. But when you get over it, you're over it. You have recovered. And the way you do it is what works best for you. Like for me, it was writing it down. It was writing down that I wanted to go get a bus and run over my ex-husband. And then, back up over him to see if he was still breathing. And if he was, run him over again. It was good for me to write it down. And then it made me laugh when I thought there was nothing to laugh at. And I was able to throw that away. I didn't have to act on it to make it something that I could not change, but I was able to write it down. That's what worked for me. And I think that because of so many people have so many different ways to recover, that however you recover, as long as it is not something that tears down someone else, it's beneficial. So the truth about recovery is it is as universal as it is personal. And we recover however we can. So we write, we sing, we paint, we do whatever it is that allows us to get beyond it.
And I think what you said, it's very individualized, but you might have to try a variety of things, right? The first thing you try may not work, but don't give up, right? You need to keep moving and doing whatever will work.
Exactly. Whatever works for you. And if you find it, I paint because it's something I've always done. But I write because at one point in my life, I couldn't paint anymore. I couldn't express the things that I needed to express with my art. So I started to write. And I started to write everything. I started to write that I hate everybody and I hate sunshine and just to write. But then I started to write so that it would benefit me. And I would start to, I always wanted to have a plant and to have a plant grow. And I realized that I could kill a plastic plant without a problem. And so that was not my calling. I cannot grow anything. And I've seen people who have the best green thumbs in the world. That's not me. But sometimes I'll walk. I'll do whatever it is to free my mind of whatever I'm going through. So I'll walk, or I'll talk to somebody, or I will, like, one of the things that I love to do is to save money for something. Because for me, what I've come to understand is, as long as there's something that keeps us going until the next day, until the sun rises, as long as there's something that keeps us pushing till tomorrow, then that's something that helps us recover. So the truth about recovery is you just need to get to the next day.
Yep.
Because every day is the opportunity to do it all over again, to try one more time.
Yeah.
So
it's not
I would
looking too far into the future, right? Not looking too far into the future. Just make it. It's that one step. You did that one step. All right. Now you're going to do another one. And now pretty soon it's the next day. And then it's the next week. And then it's the next month. And,
Exactly.
and I think that it is important. It's like goal setting. When people say, oh my gosh, I don't know, this is so huge. It's like, well, how do you eat an elephant? And they're like, wait, what?
One bite at a time.
Exactly. You need to find what works for you, but be open to listen how you said, where you're sharing your pain. And when you're sharing your pain and you're listening to others, that's helping you. It's also helping them, but it's also, what did they do? It may not work for you, but you're getting ideas, because if you've never been through it before, you might not know what will work to get you through it. And maybe what you did, if there was a death, and what worked for you for this one death didn't maybe work for you for the next. And just being open, right? Being open to opportunities and being open to trying new things to get you moving forward, I think is really important for our listeners, to make sure that they hear and understand that, is that it's sometimes trial and error. It's like the doctors. Hey, this is what the treatment we usually give, and it typically works. You might be an odd duck and it's not going to work for you. So sometimes it is trial and error. You have to go through it.
It's true. I think one thing that all women, or most women, will emphasize with is that lose weight thing, where we always feel we need to lose that 5, 10, 20 pounds, whatever it is. And I have worked with a lot of women who want to lose weight and they don't understand, or they've lost weight and it's come back, which I think every woman who's ever lost a pound knows what it is to gain that back and more.
Yep.
And then it's like, what do you do? And like, I've had to face, I've lost over 100 pounds and then I've gained it back. And then I've lost 60 of that and I gained it back. And it's like, what am I supposed to do? Well, then lose 1 pound. And that became the thing. Just lose 1 pound. Do something that'll cause you to lose the 1 pound. And if you work really hard to lose 1 pound, then in your mind, if I did all that, I should be able to lose 2, or I should be able to lose 5, or I could keep this up and I can lose 7, whatever. So you don't have to lose 100 pounds. You only have to lose 1.
Right.
And that's what you're going for. Just something to get you to the next step.
And I think that's really, it's a good thing for us to hear, right? It's something that it's doable. And when we feel like it's not so daunting and not so out of reach, it calms you, because it's that fear of the unknown. Like, oh, I don't know how I'm going to do that. Like that's like trying to climb a mountain. What? And it's once, and when you're trying to climb a mountain, you do the same thing, one step at a time.
One step at a time.
One day at a time. And sometimes
Exactly.
well, hi. So I have a visitor. Sometimes it's 1 hour at a time, when you're really going through something so severe and so devastating, right? If it's a loss of some sort, it might be 1 hour at a time. It might be just getting through this hour so you can get to the next. And I mean, I've found that, like, when you can't sleep, you're like, well, at least I slept a little bit. I might have woke up again, but stop looking at my clock, right? Stop looking at my phone to see what time it is. It doesn't matter. just go to sleep, right? Just lay there, just and be in the moment so that you can get to the next one.
Yeah. You know, like I've learned that sometimes when I can't sleep, and I do have those moments, I can't sleep in the bed no matter what I do. I can toss and turn, and it's, you know, you look at the clock and it's been 15 minutes and you're like, I'm just laying here. So what I do is I go and I get up and I go lay down on the couch. And then I wake up and I realize, oh my God, it's time to get up for work. And it's like the whole night has gone by. Because
Right.
sometimes what you need is a simple change.
Yes. Yes. So, you know, I want to move in because I think it's a good time for it. Let's move into that, our final segment, when the darkness comes back. So before we get into that, I want you to tell folks how they can reach you again. So I know you're on social media and on all things social media, and that's at Sabrina Graves, correct?
Yes, I'm on all things Sabrina Graves, whether it's on Instagram, Facebook. I haven't really learned how to tweet yet, even though everyone says that. Or on LinkedIn. I'm on all things social media, Sabrina Graves. And my email is Bree, BREE 234A @gmail.com. And they can reach out to me. And I do have an Etsy page coming, which is Just Imagine Possibilities. Which is just putting out all of my artwork out on to get it sold, because it's time to move beyond it, because once I paint a picture, it's done. But, you know, I was thinking about the fact that after I had gone through everything, and I was at a place where I was very happy and my life was content, and all of a sudden, the depression hit so hard, I could not, it got to a point where I couldn't leave my house again. And I would sit there and I would just want everything to stop. And I couldn't understand it because I got past the divorce. I got past the pain. I got past the darkness, and I'm facing it again. And I remember sitting there all night one night. And it got very dark, and I just sat there, and there were no lights on in my house, and the TV was off, and I just sat there. And I never went to sleep. I just stared outside. And after a couple hours, it started to get lighter. And it started to get lighter. And then the sun came up. And the next day started all over again. And I realized that if you wait long enough, the day comes, a new day comes. And it's like, as hard as it is to let yesterday go, once you do, and I think once we realize that we cannot change our past, there is nothing we can do about it. There's nothing we can do to say, you don't know what they did to me, and you don't know how much they hurt me. You're right, I don't. And no one will ever understand exactly what you went through, but you can't change it. So since you can't change it, what do you do about it?
Yeah.
And it's not an answer, like a set in stone answer. It's about the possibility of an answer. If you came up with 100 things of what you could do if the darkness comes back, but you only have to try one. So you come up with 100 different things that you can do, but you only have to try one out of 100. And if that didn't work, that just wasn't the one. So you try another one, because you're going to find the one thing out of 100 that'll get you beyond this. But you only have to try one thing, one at a time. So when the darkness comes back, it's about understanding that the darkness always comes back. At the end of every day is the darkness. It doesn't matter what it is. But the darkest time of night is right before it starts to break day. It's right before the dawn. So even though it's the darkest it'll ever be, but that's always right before it starts to get light again. If you understand that it's going to happen and you know it's going to happen, it makes it easier to deal with because it's all temporary. It's all subject to change.
Yeah. And I think it's about recognizing your triggers and recognizing when something is coming. And that can be hard. I mean, that sometimes you miss it altogether. I mean, I know personally, I've gotten better about knowing what triggers me for whatever that reason, either anger, depression, you know, doing some retail therapy, whatever that might be. But there are times where I totally miss it. Like all of a sudden I'm like, I can't even stand myself. Where did this come from? And, you know, then you have to look back to say, oh, like I'm not journaling, I'm not meditating, I'm not doing these things that keep me calm, or that I could have noticed, oh, maybe I haven't been eating right, and that's going to trigger me on whatever it might be. But recognizing those triggers and acknowledging that you even have them to begin with, because some people don't even want to acknowledge that they have those triggers, but then realizing this is what puts me into that tailspin, or could put me into that tailspin, and having those 100 things that you can do. Like sometimes this works and sometimes this works and sometimes this works. Sometimes it's me hitting my wave master, just punching and kicking the living daylights out of it. It makes me feel better.
Right.
It's, you know, I end up laughing.
It's also about something you said about failure. I think that we do ourselves a big favor when we allow ourselves the opportunity to fail, when we allow ourselves the chance to be wrong. You know, one of the things my sister loves to say is that we should always learn to be humble, because we could be wrong. And I think that if we allow ourselves the privilege to fail, when it happens and we get it wrong, it's okay. Because we have learned that it's okay to get it wrong sometimes. We always search for perfection. We always push for that. But if we allow ourselves to just be wrong once, it relieves the pressure to always be right. And that's okay. So when the darkness comes back, you know what? It's never going to be perfect. It's never going to be 100%. But it's okay, because I got 98. And I can push toward 100 the next time, because I missed that one. But it's okay to do that because we're human. And I think when we allow ourselves that privilege, we do better. And when the darkness comes back, it's okay, because we understand it'll go away again and the sun will rise.
Yes. No, and I think that is important for listeners to remember. And I'd love to hear from you listeners. You won't be able to call in, but message us here at the show. Let us know what you thought. What do you do? How do you deal with your triggers, and how do you know they're coming? And let us know, and tell us what you've been through. Because as Sabrina has said, you learn and you grow when you're listening to others, and you are taking the time to go through it, right? To keep going, to take that one step at a time. And you learn and grow, and you can help others by your story, just as Sabrina has today. So Sabrina, real quick, you have a few different books. How can people get copies of these books or place an order for them?
Well, we are on Amazon. And so my books are on Amazon, or they can reach out to me and get a copy of the book. And what I will do, I would love to do, is and you would have to tell me, but for your listeners who reach out, the first 5 listeners who reach out can get a free copy of Help Me, I'm Broken, so that they can see where it is beyond that, what you take to do to just get out of it. Because all of us at some point are broken, and it's like being broken is just the opportunity to become more than we were before. It's not, every stop in our life doesn't mean we stay there. It just means we stop for a moment and keep going. Every stop is not a stay. So it's like when we're driving, You come to a stop sign, you stop for a moment, but if you stay there too long, the guy behind you is going to honk his horn like, get out of the way. It's always like that. So we stay there for a moment. So like the first 5 listeners who contact you and share their story, even part of it, or talk about anything that they can share with us, I would love to send them a copy of Help Me, I'm Broken, so that they can see what it is. And I think that being able to help somebody else is the best way to get beyond our own pain.
Oh, I couldn't agree more. And so you heard that, listeners. Message us right here at the show. We'll get you in contact with Sabrina and get the copy of that book. And so tell folks one last time, how can they reach out to you on either social media or email so that they can reach out and learn more about you?
You can reach out on all things social media, Sabrina Graves, where it's me on Instagram and on Facebook. And my email is Bree, BREE 234a@gmail.com. On LinkedIn, also Sabrina Graves. But you can reach out also on Amazon, because I am on Amazon and the books are there. But you know what? I really believe that as long as we understand that there is always life after, because the same way a broken crayon will still color, a broken heart still beats. And there's always, opportunity after the pain. It's just about the possibilities.
Thank you so much, Sabrina. It has been an absolute pleasure to have you on the show today. Thank you
you,
so much for
Erica.
sharing your time. And I want to thank you all for tuning in to Get Rooted Radio. If you missed any part of today's episode or want to listen again, go to getrootedradio.com for the podcast. And don't forget to tune in the first and third Monday of each month at 5 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Central, and 2 p.m. Pacific right here on Transformation Talk Radio. Before I sign off, remember to ask yourself, am I living a rooted life? Am I thriving or just settling and surviving? If the answer is no, take time to think about what you need to do, then take action to make that answer a yes. One way to take action is to set up your free Empower Hour call with me. No charge, no obligations. Go to getrootedradio.com to find out how I can help you take action. And if you're ready to live, love, and let go, join me for my signature 12-week group coaching series, The Rooted Life. This series will assist you in achieving your goals, moving forward by letting go of the things that no longer serve you, learning to love yourself and others fully, and living life to its fullest. Go to getrootedradio.com to learn more about the 12-week series and to get that free Empower Hour. That's getrootedradio.com. Thank you again for tuning in. Have an amazing day, and I'm looking forward to the next time on Get Rooted Radio with Erica Gifford Mills. Living it up, loving it up, letting it go. Goodbye, everybody.
Thank you for listening to Get Rooted Radio with Erica Gifford Mills, living it up, loving it up, and letting it go. Visit getrootedradio.com if you've missed any part of this hit show, and tune in on transformationtalkradio.com to live fearlessly in your more and powerfully rooted in your unlimited yes. For more information and to work with Erica directly, visit getrootedradio.com. That's getrootedradio.com, and get ready to live it up, love it up, and let it go.